On today's DNVR Broncos show, we're breaking down the film of Bo Nix's impressive first game, and I came away from the film even more impressed with Bo Nix. We'll get Henry's take as well. Plus, we're looking at other players in the game, who's trending up, who's trending down, and where the position battles stand. Let's dive into it now. Oh, the first episode of the Bo Show, Henry, was great. But was it even better the second time you watch it? What are some key takeaways? Let's dive into that on the DNVR Broncos podcast. We've got Henry Chisholm, Zach Stevens, you here behind the camera, rocking and rolling with you. Less than 48 hours after Bo Nix and the Broncos made their preseason debut this year. And of course, we're sitting here live in the Toyota Lounge here inside the DNVR Bar. The Toyota Lounge is, of course, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores, so go check them out if you need a new car, whether it's a sports car, whether it's a truck, or anything in between. Toyota's got it. Henry, how you doing today? You've just been grinding over grades.
Yeah, no, it's been pretty crazy. Because I went through and wrote the first thing after the game. I was like, oh, might as well throw the game on. Then yesterday, woke up early. Luckily, they posted that all 22 early. So yesterday, I got through all the notes on everybody. So I wound up, 2,100 words of notes on the offense. So just each offensive player. And so this morning I woke up nice and early. I started writing those notes into actual sections and figuring out what grades are. So I'm halfway through the offense. So hopefully 2 o'clock today, 3 o'clock, we'll have the offensive grades on the website. And then before I go to bed, defensive grades will be up there too. So
boom, I love it. So go make sure to check out thednvr.com where Henry just grinds on these grades. Incredible knowledge on there. So you're going to want to make sure to check out thednvr.com for his in-depth grades. And I want your grade, Henry, on Bo Nix.
Oh, I haven't picked out a grade yet.
Totally fair.
I decided those quarterbacks are so much to write.
Tease.
Yeah.
What'd you think then?
Off the top of my head, maybe an A-.
Oh, okay.
I think an A-. It's tough, though. Maybe it's even an A. Because I think, again, the grades are results-based. It's what did you go out there? What did you get done? You had whatever opportunity. What did you do with it? The eye test, or the process maybe is a better word. That's where maybe he takes a bit of a hit. Because it felt like a lot of the time he was out there. Again, all credit to him. He found ways to be successful on every play. But as you go back through, you look and, the scramble, for example. He runs, he converts the 3rd and 3. Good play. Also, he had 2 wide open receivers right in front of him that he could have just thrown the ball to. And you're a veteran quarterback probably just makes the easy pass, and you're off and running nice and smooth, probably pick up a couple more yards. I thought there were a couple missed receivers. Again, when you go back and watch, he really isn't setting his feet. It really is. Anytime it's not an RPO, it's a little jumpy. It's a little bit skittish. And again, it's nothing you don't expect from him. It's nothing you don't expect from, especially his first preseason game. But there are a couple of those things where okay, scouting wise, maybe there's quite a bit to clean up. Again, a whole bunch of really good things. He definitely an A day, I think, probably. But he really had to work for some of those results.
I have to imagine that the thing you pointed to is probably Sean Payton's biggest criticism of Bo after that game was just making sure your feet are right. A couple of times he's thrown off his back foot. Now, not totally throwing off his back foot where he's having to use his entire arm to throw the ball instead of his body, but just you can tell that his weight probably a little too much on the back foot when he could have stepped through with his front foot. So I think you nailed that in terms of probably the number one thing that can be done better. But Henry, I actually...
Real quick, though.
Yeah.
So the other thing is it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, where he's great throwing off platform. And because of that, he just leans on it a little bit too much. I think all 3 of those first 3 throws that he had, he's running upfield and trying to chuck the ball, and he hits the third one. He misses the first couple. Again, there's pressure there and all that sort of stuff. But if you just set your feet, you turn that like 90% throw, you make it a 90% throw instead of like running and trying to like whip your arm around. It makes it like a 70% throw. It's just those little things. Again, you see that a lot from quarterbacks who are capable of doing the things that Bo does. Like, I think that's probably the biggest complaint about Patrick Mahomes right now is that he still misses some throws because he just doesn't set his feet. And why doesn't he set his feet? Because he's Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't need to set his feet.
Right.
And so you see some of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just little details, things that you knew that had to be cleaned up, and he still found a way to be successful.
100%, 15 of 20, 125 yards, a touchdown, should have been 2, which we'll get to, over 102 pass rating, plus 17 rushing yards.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're right. The stats show that he was able to get it done. And obviously, after the postgame show, during the postgame show, right after the game, I was over the moon with Bo's performance. The stats, I thought on the initial look, he passed the eye test as well. And after going through and watching every single throw of his again, Henry, I came away more impressed than I was even on the post game. Yes, so I actually take kind of a different tone from you. Like, obviously, the results were there. We knew that after the game.
Yep.
But after watching, I'm just so impressed with how mature of a quarterback he looks already.
Interesting.
And I want to get into a couple of specific plays in order to talk about that. Let's just start with the very first one. So, obviously, especially on the first time you watch this, when you're watching the game live, we talked about it. After the first 2 throws, Henry, you and I are like, uh-oh. Like, you have to be a little nervous after those first 2 throws, but you're not panicking. It's the first 2 throws of a preseason game from your rookie quarterback, but you're just like, this accuracy that we were told about and that we've seen and that Sean Payton drafted Bo from and set a single season record in college football at 77.8. It wasn't there those first 2 plays at all. And when you go back, that first throw, I don't put on him at all.
Really?
Okay. I put 10% on him because of the pressure and the way this pressure came. It was very, very unexpected pressure. If you watch the play, Bo has a really good pocket for the first second. And then all of a sudden, Quinn Meinerz just gets destroyed. I mean, a defender kind of like throws him. And to the extent where Quinn is like bent over with the defender running straight at Bo, and then you see Quinn just turn around. You never want an offensive lineman looking right at the quarterback with the defender in between them. And the way the defender kind of shed that block from Quinn, he was kind of like falling on the ground to get to him. It probably could have been a penalty there with hitting a quarterback low, even though it like wasn't the defender's fault, but probably could have been a penalty there. And the pressure just came like it was a great pocket, great pocket, great pocket. Oh my gosh, someone's falling into me. And so that's what caused the throw to be so poor.
Yeah, and so the other piece of that is that earlier in the game, I think it was that same defensive lineman had beaten Quinn inside. And so that's why Quinn was just, when he saw the initial inside move, he overcommitted. And so he was able to beat him back outside because Quinn was overcommitting because he'd already been beaten to the inside before. I'm
not going to take that excuse, though.
Oh, no. But I mean, that's like why it happened. That's why he overcommitted inside is because, and that's just like that's like the Von Miller type stuff where you're like, you have the move, you have the counter, and then, so that was the counter to the first move where he'd won. And so yeah. But the other piece of that play, too, is that Greg Dulcich actually had found some space, which I didn't realize in watching it the first time because from the broadcast angle, you can't see it. Just kind of like flashes down the field. It's like, oh, there's Greg Dulcich next to a defender. He was on like a little double move, and there was this little triangle of defenders. So he'd settled down into this pocket of space, and the ball was just a little bit inside, which led him into the defenders. And again, yeah, like he's under duress. It's the first time he's actually been hit by a defender since November, I would believe. Yeah, because he didn't play in a bowl game. So you would expect him to be just a little bit skittish. Any quarterback on top of that first game, you have an NFL defender coming at you, just short arms the throw, leads him inside. It would have been a tight window to hit anyway. I think he's capable of hitting it. But yep, I mean, just pressure, misthrow, dangerous, and got away with it.
Yeah, and I totally see where you're coming from, but I'm putting 90% of that on Quinn and the pressure because not only was there pressure there, I mean, I think it was really close to tell, but I think he was being hit low when he was releasing the ball, which makes so much sense why it's like it seemed like it was a really bad decision
it was just
to throw the ball live. But I think when I went and watched it back, what I came away with was, oh, man, it's because he was getting hit that totally threw that process off. So I actually don't put really much on him for that one at all. The next play,
the hit came right after, but he threw off his back foot because it was just about there.
Yeah, I mean, it impacted him. I'm putting that one on Quinn there. The next play, though, I mean, no excuse. It was just it was a poorly thrown ball. It was not the best decision to start off, but it was just a bad throw. So that one's on him. I put that one on him. I did like how he stepped up in the pocket, though. Bowles was beat pretty bad. Last year, that's probably a 7-yard sack with Russ. So I liked how Bo stepped up in the pocket because Bowles got beat on that pressure, but then it was just a bad throw.
You just need to reset your feet.
Yep.
That's one of those where it's good to step up in the pocket, but you don't want to just be square to your target because that's how you wind up missing the throw. Real quick, reset your feet, throw it in there. And again, with his feet not set, he still probably hits that throw half the time, maybe even more.
Yeah.
But you can make it so much easier and hit that throw 80% of the time
100%.
if you set your feet.
100%.
Again, the back off your back foot, not resetting the feet. These were kind of some of the complaints coming out of college. And so it's no surprise that in your first live action, you kind of revert back to that stuff. You just don't want that to be ingrained.
Especially because once he stepped up, he did still have a good pocket, and he had enough time to reset his feet. So bad throw there, no excuses there. The third throw, that's the first completion he has where he steps up in the pocket and throws to Courtland Sutton. This is one where it's like, yeah, you're on the move, you're running, you don't have to reset your feet, and he is very comfortable making these throws. So these are the times when you don't have to worry about you're not coaching him up to. No, instead of throwing on the run, stop and throw. No, you want him throwing on the run in these situations.
But again, he could have reset his feet, and then all of a sudden,
I think on this one,
he made the throw anyway
because he wasn't just moving around in a pocket. He was actually running up. I think that's okay to throw on the run in that situation, in my perspective.
And great route from Court too.
It was
that
potentially PI on Court. He goes inside, then kind of cuts in, and maybe couldn't fully tell. Maybe throws the guy on the ground or just breaks his ankles on the turn.
Broke the ankles.
I think he might have done both.
No, okay.
It was a great play by Court, and actually, I think Court got pretty good with those last year because that might have even been a second route from Court there. Potentially, he might have read. It looked like he was actually cutting inside, and then he cut outside, and I'm not sure if
that was a big out route. It was this big inside release and then bang, and the defender fell.
Okay, it looked like once Bo took off, maybe Court decided to change the route. And if so, I mean, just great football IQ by Court. So only credit given to Court there. And then his very next pass, Henry, is the one that should have been a second touchdown. I mean, maybe it wasn't his very next pass, but the next pass that I want to talk about, the 22-yard, he should have had a 22-yard touchdown to Josh Reynolds. This ball, Josh Reynolds was in pretty tight coverage, but he had a step on the defender, and Bo put this exactly where it needed to be.
Yep.
Hit his hands. Hit Josh Reynolds, both of his hands. Couldn't have been a better throw. Josh Reynolds needs to catch that. And I know fans are freaking out because he had those drops in the NFC Championship game. Josh doesn't typically have those issues, but it popped up in the first preseason game, so I totally understand why fans are worried about his hands. He has to come down with that one. It was a perfect throw in the end zone.
Yep, and it's one of those where good receivers make that catch. If you're DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Courtland Sutton, they always make that catch. I think that, the further you go down kind of the list of your great receivers down to the bad receivers, there's a line somewhere in there where it turns into these where half the time they catch it. When you go back, Demaryius catches that every time. You need Josh Reynolds to be a guy who catches that every single time. And, he's been kind of on that borderline throughout his career as a guy who's kind of a third, fourth option. If he's going to be starting for you, you need your starting receivers to be able to make that play.
Okay, I agree with you about that he needs to make that play. I disagree with you about the line of receiver to make that play. Every receiver who steps foot in the NFL should make that play. I mean, we're talking about bottom of the roster guys at the receiver spot. Philip Dorsett should make that play. There was no dive. There was no extension. It was literally running with your hands out in front of you. I have a screenshot on my Twitter just to show you how like routine of a catch it was.
I don't know if I could call it routine though. Like it's over the shoulder with a guy on your back and you're reaching
an over the shoulder catch. That's routine. That's all it was an over the shoulder catch
with a guy on your back.
22 yards downfield.
I think that you'd see a lot of receivers not catch it. But again, like a starting receiver, you got to make those plays, especially for a rookie quarterback.
Wow. I disagree. I thought it was a perfectly thrown ball, and I think
Definitely
perfectly
was.
thrown balls should be caught by any receiver in the NFL. And let's keep going through his game because I haven't even got to the plays that excite me the most about Bo. But I first have to tell you about UC Health's Ready, Set, Co initiative that they have going on, and it's all about living a healthy life. So they've partnered with Coach Prime to help you and other Coloradans live their healthiest selves by making Prime the chief motivation officer of UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge. The goal of this challenge is to get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state. This year, Coach Motivation Officer Prime is joined by other personas: Nutrition Prime, Exercise Prime, Sleep Prime, and Henry's favorite, Mindfulness Prime. Each Prime persona breaks down how to dive into each area of the Ready, Set, Co mindset. Each of the 5 primes is here to motivate, help, and inspire you, and all you have to do is join up by going to uchealth.org/readysetco. If you want more information to join the challenge, go to uchealth.org/readysetco, or you can click the link in our show notes or this podcast to get in there. That's uchealth.org/readysetco.
And check out Indeed. We've said this before, but over 350 million people go there every month to look for a job. I think in the olden days, it was just like you post a job and then people go and apply for the job. But with all the new technology, all of a sudden, it's not about that. It's about matching. So you put your resume in there, or if you're trying to hire somebody, you put the job description in there, and it will match people with jobs that fit them well. It's a super cool technology. And again, over 350 million global monthly viewers. That's a lot of people who are on there, which means if you're looking for candidates, that's where you want to be. It makes your job as a boss much easier. You can use it for scheduling or screening, messaging, all that sort of stuff, so you can connect with candidates faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed study. 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Their matching engine constantly is learning from your preferences, so that the more you use it, the better that it gets. 3.5 million businesses on there. Which is actually a pretty good ratio. 350 million monthly users, 3.5 million businesses. That's 100 per user. You would think that you'd find some good candidates.
Certainly.
And listeners for this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit. Get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
Indeed, you do. All right, Henry. We talked about this after the game. Did your feelings change at all about the Jaleel screen? And of course, the debate was, should Bo have thrown the ball not as hard for Jaleel, or should Jaleel have caught it? And like, where you put the blame on here?
It's a tough one because it's just it was doomed from the start. So I tweeted during the game, like, who we putting more of the blame on? Like, is it Jaleel or is it Bo? It was probably like 75% Bo, 25% Jaleel.
Whoa.
But there were a few people who said you should have just thrown the ball at Jaleel's feet because that was going nowhere. And in hindsight, like, that might have been the real move. I'm not really splitting blame here. I think actually, let's see if I can find it. I think it might have been Wattenberg who was late getting to his guy, and that's probably where the blame actually lies. That play was just doomed from the start.
That's very fair, and that's actually why I didn't put blame on Bo for throwing the ball hard, is because if he would have put touch on this screen, and sometimes, Henry, you do want to put touch on screen passes because the offensive line's still getting set up. You want to give the running back time, and maybe you put it in a spot where the running back can slowly catch it and then take off. But in this scenario, I like that he put zip on it, because if he doesn't put zip on it, he's either putting the ball in harm's way where it could be picked off because there were defenders right there. Now, this one, I don't think it's picked off, but he could be putting Jaleel out to dry if he puts some loft on this, because the defender would have been there right away. So it is fair to say.
Still got popped, too.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine if he would have put more air under this. That's why I have put no blame on Bo. This is one where there are some times where a quarterback, if you're 5 yards away from a guy, you do want to not zip it into him, make it an easier ball to catch. But this one, you had to. And so I do think it's fair. You could have said that he should have thrown the ball at Jaleel's feet. But just in that conversation, I actually thought throwing it hard to Jaleel was a lot better than lobbing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it also bounced up in the air instead of just going straight down there. It was just a busted play where nothing good was going to happen regardless.
Another play that I want to talk about, the pass interference that he drew with Devon Vele. I love that. That was, to me, a veteran play by both of them. By Bo.
Wait, the deep one or the short one?
The deep one.
Okay.
Where he went deep down the left sideline. And I thought that, what was it, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10? It was 3rd and long. Nothing was there. So he just throws the ball up, gives his receiver an opportunity to make a play, but more so an opportunity to draw a pass interference. That's a vet move from a quarterback. We saw Russ do that a couple of times last year, and it was really good. But then credit Devon Vele making a really big-time vet play. Probably couldn't have got there, but what does he do instead? He tries to run through the defender, which then draws a pass interference, because you got to let the receiver have an opportunity to make a play. So I love that on both of their parts.
Yep. He was also getting hit as he threw it, which might explain the underthrow also.
Potentially.
But yeah, good play.
The touchdown, we broke it down a lot on the post-game show. It was a laser quick decision. I mean, that is credit to Sean Payton there, and also Bo Nix for just making the right read, zipping it in there, and then Marvin Mims with a good catch.
Yep. I was surprised in going back. There were even more RPOs than I realized. There was a quick out to Vele that, at the time, you're like, oh, just pre-snap read, quick route. And then you look and you're like, oh, that was another RPO in there, which is interesting.
I love that, though.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, again, for the first few years. I mean, you put him on the Mahomes path, where I think
that.
4 years ago, they're running a whole bunch of RPOs. Last year, they cut it over that time by 48%. So, it's a good way to ease quarterbacks into the league, especially when they come from those offenses. Again, it really limits you in some ways, but it's... when you've got to run 65 plays on offense, you don't want to make it, say 30 of them are runs, 35 are passes. You don't want 35 hard plays for your quarterback. And so it's just a way to just fill some of those so that you don't need to build out your offense so far and ask him to remember so many things. So, yeah, I definitely like it.
And then the play that I really want to get into, definitely, at least from my perspective, the most overlooked play that Bo Nix had in the first watch, which I think just shows so much hope and promise for him, is a screenplay that did not turn in to a screenplay. And here's actually clip this play for me, and I want to take you guys through this. So this was the very first play after Lucas Kroll's fumble. And then, of course, the Broncos got the interception right after. So still the 2-minute warning right before half, minute 23 left on the clock. Broncos at the Colts, or at their own 16-yard line. So Sean calls a screen for Jaleel here, and you'll see it develop. Okay, let's go through this here. You'll see it develop. So Jaleel looks like he's just pass protecting. The line's doing a great job covering that it's a screen. Next one. Still looks exactly like that. This screen is being set up great. But right here, when Jaleel turns around and some of the offensive linemen start to break on it. In fact, if you watch the game copy right here, you hear the Colts yelling, screen, screen, screen. And look how much this play is broken up right here. I mean, you don't even see Jaleel. He is just covered by Colts here. If we thought that other one might have been a blown-up screen, this one is an absolute disaster compared to even that one. If Bo throws this, even at his feet, that's a dangerous play because there's just so many Colts there. You never know if it's going to bounce up or what's going to happen. He cannot throw this ball to Jaleel. So what does he do? He can either scramble, but man, you've already set up a screen. There's going to be a lot of Colts in the background right there. So he kind of steps up to the left a little bit and then quickly finds Lucas Kroll in the flat. And look, Lucas is only 4 yards downfield right here. But so let's say Lucas catches this and then gets tackled right away. Well, you just turned a play that could have easily gone for a loss of 6 yards, if not even worse, an interception, a fumble. You just turn that into a 4-yard completion there. But then no, Kroll turns upfield because I think the Colts were prepared for a screen and they were running down. I mean, you see the linebackers there at the line of scrimmage. Kroll turns this upfield. He gets 10 more yards or 12 more yards, picks up 16 yards on the play. That's a 22-yard difference right there. And also, if Jaleel catches that screen and gets blown up, the clock is ticking, plus you just lost 6 yards. Now it's 2nd and 16. Good luck turning that drive around. They ended up getting a field goal on that drive. I just thought this showed incredible poise by Bo, because one thing he can't do, or another thing he can't do, Henry, he can't hold on to the ball there and wait for more guys to open up downfield and then throw the ball, because you might have offensive linemen who are protecting for a screen that are already running downfield, and then it's illegal man downfield on the offense. So he knew he had to make a split-second decision. He made that split-second decision to not throw the ball, then find that open receiver. I just thought that showed, for a guy making his very first start, or not even start, very first action in the NFL, that showed so much poise and the ability to quickly think on his feet. I personally can't remember a play where I've seen a quarterback do that, where they've abandoned a screen to find someone else and it turns into a positive play. Typically, like you said earlier, you just throw the ball at the feet. And you know what? Coaches say, good decision, you live to see another day. This was even a better decision.
Yeah, 2 things on this one. First of all, this is why Bo's a first-round pick, is because of plays like this. This is the second play, the ability to extend plays. You see it more in the red zone. Like, if you just go back and watch every throw he had in the red zone at Oregon last year, most of them are like this, where something, maybe not a busted screen, but something goes wrong. He rolls out, he buys time, he finds something. And this is like the backyard energy that made Bo Nix a great recruit and then eventually a great player at Oregon. Again, everybody wants to point to a lot of the in-structure stuff. That's all easy. Like the RPOs, that sort of stuff, that's not difficult. This is where he kind of elevates his game. And the modern NFL, these are the guys who are finding the most success. The other piece is, I think it was TBD in the chat said, what an arm angle. Yeah, actually this offseason, Bo changed his throwing motion. So instead of throwing more like straight over the top, he switched to more of like a 3/4 arm angle, kind of like the Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes type stuff, because it makes it easier. Because when you're used to doing this, dropping down to here is difficult. When you're used to throwing it from that 3/4, getting to these weird arm angles is easier. We saw those arm angles last year from him at Oregon, but you'd imagine you're going to see even more of that because of the work that he's done with his quarterback coach to kind of adjust those sorts of things.
I love that. I absolutely love that, Henry. And like you said, I mean, you're comparing it to that's what Mahomes and Rodgers do. Probably two good people to rely on.
That's the play style.
And also that shows Bo's arm strength. We talked about it with James. James says that Bo doesn't have elite arm strength. I'm certainly not going to disagree with that. I don't think he has elite arm strength, but he has way good enough arm strength to be able to do this and succeed in the NFL and make these tight window passes like he did to Marvin Mims in the end zone, to make these off-balance throws like he did on this play and a couple of other plays. Those are the plays that I wanted to highlight, Henry, because I think you can easily see how he went 15 of 21 for 125 yards and a touchdown. That easily could have been 17 for 21, 18 for 21. And he already had a great game, and I think it could have been even better there. And plus, even the small plays that he made, I thought were big plays. And again, could have had a touchdown to Josh Reynolds. And one more thing that I want to give Bo credit for, which is so encouraging. He was 4 for 5 on 3rd down for 50 yards, a touchdown, almost a perfect passer rating, just shy of 148. He also ran for 6 yards for a first down on one of those, converted 4 of his 6 third downs with Nix as quarterback. Incredible. So not only everyone, of course, knows he scored on all of his possessions outside of the one that Lucas Kroll fumbled on, including coming out of halftime, including right before half. But he was also great on 3rd down, and he was really good in the red zone. So that's just why, like, I was really impressed with them after the game. Looking at this even further, I'm even more impressed. And I mean, a lot of people are optimistic in the Toyota chat. There's some people that are saying I'm too optimistic on Bo. Look, I'm just going off of what we've seen so far. And over these past 2 weeks of training camp, Bo has trended in the right direction. Then he just had a phenomenal first game in the NFL. And as a lot of people in the Toyota chat are saying, I'm pumped for Sunday. I can't wait to see him in Denver for the first time and getting the start.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, again, like you go back to that screen, that your square shoulders, that's not your typical throwing motion. You drop your arm down the side. Going back to what I was saying at the beginning, like that's the blessing and the curse. Like that's you find a way to get that ball to him, but because you're capable of doing those things, sometimes you lean on it a little bit too much. You look at the third downs, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of buying time. A couple times he escaped pockets they didn't really need to escape. There were times where he escaped the pocket and it worked out for him. Again, you just want to see. This is a very, very high starting point.
Yeah.
Like you really like what you see. What you want to see now, though, is that the times where he's using some of those off-platform, off-script, break the pocket, make something happen skills, you want to see him use those less in situations where he doesn't need to use them. And that's how he becomes a better player because, again, there were just those couple early missed throws. Yeah, I guess only other bad note that I had in here was, you remember there was a throw to Devon Bailey where he just left the ball a little bit behind him. It was a tight window. He was trying to protect him. There was really nothing there. He had Troy Franklin wide open on the sideline on the other side of the field and just didn't really see it. And again, like he's reading that half of the field. It is what it is. But you see him occasionally like be a little bit quick to the checkdowns. That's still a thing. You see him again use those like you see him use his creativity when he doesn't need to. So it's a great starting point. It leaves pretty easy, maybe not easy problems to fix, but easy problems to identify. Like you don't leave this thinking like, where do we go from here? Where you go from is saying we gotta set the feet when we throw the football, and we can. The other thing that was interesting, not a single pass that was just a straight drop back from under center. 22 passing plays, not a single one of those. And I think Zach Wilson had one, Jarrett Stidham had one. I'm actually not sure if Stidham had one, thinking back. And that's another piece I wrote about here where we've seen kind of the early formula for Bo Nix. And it's a lot of shotgun. It's RPO heavy, which makes the reads easy. It lets you lean on the running game because, again, if it's not there, it's another run. It adds to that total, which you love. You see a lot of very simple concepts out of shotgun as well, which may also just be because it's week 1 of the preseason, where you run like your outside guys just run straight down the field. You run outs in behind them, and you just pick which side you like better. It's a quick little read. You see a lot of that stuff. You also see under center the heavy running game, of course, which you want to get to, and play action off of that. Eventually, you want to get those quick passes off of that too, so that the defense doesn't know, well, if you're throwing the ball, it's going to take like 2 seconds for you to actually get into a position where you can throw. So cornerbacks can sit back a bit. Linebackers can play the run heavier because they have time to get to their assignments. So you see these little pieces. You see like the core of what this offense is. It's just about patching some of those little gaps and developing that shotgun passing game to where it's a little bit more complex. But what you've seen so far, I wouldn't say Nix has mastered it, but there's a whole lot to like. And again, I'm curious to see what it looks like next week when he's playing with the starters against the Packers backups.
And we talked about this on the postgame show. That is just brilliant coaching by Sean Payton to say, okay, you might not be able to fully run a Drew Brees offense yet or the typical classic Sean Payton offense yet, but so I'm going to give you what you can run well, and we're going to see if you can do that. Okay, you can. Now let's slowly integrate other things. I wouldn't be surprised if we barely see Bo take many dropbacks from under center for the first half of this season, or maybe even all of this season. We'll see there. We're going to slowly see it integrate. But if he just were to say, okay, you're Drew Brees, go run Drew Brees' offense, just set him up for failure, that's bad coaching right there, and we've seen way too much bad coaching over the years to where coaches come in and say, you're running my offense, kid. And it's like, well, I don't do that well. Well, you're doing it anyways, and then they fail, and it's not a surprise. So I love, and all credit to Sean Payton, too, for doing this to Bo, and I'm just excited to see this continue to evolve, and you're going to be able to be there in person. And I want to give a shout-out to us. over at DNVR, where you are going to be able to see Bo Nix play in live action at Empower Field at Denver this Sunday. And if you are going to the game, you're going to want to hang out with us before the game. We've got a tailgate going on. It is here. Tailgate season is back, and we are in the same spot. We're in the parking lot right behind Sports Fan at 18th and Federal.
Yes.
Not only is it close to the stadium, it is the best view that you get. You get the stadium, plus you get the city in the background. And like I said, I think it's like the closest tailgate lot that you can be at when it comes to watching Broncos games. So this week, we're celebrating the kickoff with only $10 tickets to our tailgate. You can get them over at thednvr.com/events. That's right, $10 is going to get you access to the tailgate, which is going to get you Illegal Pete's Catering and all you can drink Breck Brews. You can't get one of those things for $10, let alone both of those things. Plus, it's a Sunday night game, so it's going to be a fun environment to be at. If you're going to be at the game, make sure to stop by our tailgate and get your tickets before over at thednvr.com/events. Make sure to follow us on social at DNVR_sports or go to thednvr.com/events to check out the rest of our event calendar.
Also, you can still bet on Bo Nix to be Rookie of the Year. Odds are still the same. Plus 1,600 and boosted to plus 1,800 at Bet365, which is why we love them. I made a little bit of money last night.
Okay.
I had so Bradley Blaylock, the pitching prospect that the Rockies trade for at the trade deadline. He made his Rockies debut last night. Was awesome. Fell apart a little bit at the end. Wound up giving up like 3 runs in 6 innings. Gave up 2 of those in that last inning, which sucked. But he was great. And he also had at least 4 strikeouts, which is what I needed. Brendan Rodgers continued his hit streak with another hit yesterday. Made money off of that one as well. Would have made a lot of money if the Rockies would have would have won the game instead of blowing it when Tyler Kinley spiked back-to-back pitches and let runners from third get home on both of them.
There's always something with the Rockies, isn't there?
And Tyler Kinley had like this great month out of nowhere. But still, there are other things to bet on, like the Broncos, who you can get really good odds on still at Bet365. If you want to sign up, you can use the code DNVR365, deposit $10, choose between either a bet and get offer, place about $5 or more, get $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer, you place a bet up to $1,000. If that qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay, one more thing on Bo Nix, because it was one play where people weren't exactly sure whose fault it was. When he threw the fade to Vele in the end zone, and Vele broke in, and Nix threw the fade to the outside. I talked to a former NFL player, and they said 100% of the time the receiver has to go to the outside.
Yep.
So they said that was on Vele there. Who knows if it turns into a touchdown or not, but it wasn't Bo making the wrong decision there.
Yep. And so that's, I'm not sure if it's like a pre-snap decision, whether it's post-snap, you read what happens. The corner was playing with outside leverage on Vele, which means that the slant is going to be easier for him, except that there are defenders sitting inside. I think that he was able to push that defender out far enough, just with his release, that he was able to break in and box out. And I think you could have gotten a touchdown there, just because he was able to clear that space. So I think it was a really great route and play in that way from Vele, but it was the wrong decision. And so, of course, you don't even get the opportunity. So
it's fair.
I don't know. If there's going to be a miscommunication, at least the receiver, I thought, really handled what he tried to do pretty well and created this little pocket among these 3 defenders over there.
Yep, I like that breakdown too. Okay, let's put a bow on this Bo Nix conversation, Henry.
Yes.
I made the case and still 100% believe, and the games, let's just name Bo Nix a starter right now, yesterday, right after Sunday's game. I do not believe Sean Payton is going to do that, even though I think it's what he should do. But here's what I think is going to happen. In 1 week from now, Sean Payton is going to bring Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Bo Nix into the building on their off day. Tell them Bo Nix is the starter. Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson are still going to be fighting for that backup job. And then on Wednesday morning, when the team is back from their off day, this is next Wednesday, Sean Payton is going to announce to the team that Bo Nix is the Denver Broncos starting quarterback for Week 1. It's exactly how I think it's going to go down, and that's how it should go down. If he's not going to name him the starter now, then he should at least name him the starter next week, and I think that's what will happen. Bo Nix is going to get the start with the starters this week, and then he will officially be named the starter.
And this is a strange week. It's last week was really simple because you just have your couple of camp practices. You can rotate the guys. You have Stidham go through all the pregame work, all like the scouting, Friday practice, Saturday walkthrough with the starters because that makes sense. Let them start. This week, though, is much less clear just because you practice Wednesday, Thursday. You have the Packers here Friday. You have the preseason game Sunday. So you know Bo's starting Sunday. Does that mean you want to get Stidham some work with the starters on Friday against the Packers? I think in a normal competition, you'd say probably like that's the fair way to do it. You stagger the days before that. So it's like Stidham first, then Bo. Stidham gets that practice, then Bo. But the tough part is the Packers aren't playing their starters on Sunday.
Correct.
So there's a lot that changes because of that. Now all of a sudden you think you probably want to see Bo with the starters against starters in the practice. But also, do you want to give him both those? Do you not give Jarrett the opportunity? How do you even read into Sunday's practice? To me, that game on Sunday should look a lot like the Rams game last year when the Rams didn't play their starters and the Broncos won 41-0.
Love it.
Like you really should, if you're going out there with your starting offense, starting defense against the backups, they go to their threes while you have Stidham leading the twos. But also, how many points are we really giving Bo for hopefully dominating against those guys? So it's just going to be a really strange week to see how it plays out, what you actually read into. The practice should matter more. But yeah, regardless, you still think that early next week we should be finding out who the starter is.
You set it up perfect about how this is such a weird week and how did Sean Payton approach it. But you said one thing in there, Henry, that is so key. You said if this was a fair competition, you'd give Stidham the starting reps on Friday, Bo the starting reps in the game, and this isn't a fair competition. I think it's already been decided that Bo is going to be the starter. I think Sean just wants to continue this evaluation process, mainly for Stidham and Zach Wilson. I think that's what's up for grabs right now, and we'll talk about that more as the week goes on, as we see these guys back to practice tomorrow. But I think that's why Sean Payton's keeping the competition open, is for the backup job. So I do think that Bo will get the starting reps on Friday and the starting reps in the game, because the practice is probably more important than the game, because he's going to be going up against the Packers starters in practice and the Packers backups in the game. So this isn't a fair competition. I think that the Broncos internally have already decided, they haven't announced, but they've already decided Bo Nix is our starter. And I think we're really going to see that reflected in the snaps this week. Maybe Jarrett gets, I think my guess, Bo gets first team reps tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. Jarrett gets first team reps on Thursday. Make it look like there's a little competition. I totally agree with that. I don't think you need to make it look like there's a competition, because there's not. But that's my guess is how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, but there's the strange piece is that they are still calling it a competition. Just because this week you would think you don't learn. And I guess it's just because, first of all, Stidham didn't play badly. You know, he just caught some tough breaks. You know, there's some things that you don't love. Like there was a 3rd and 16 where he throws like a 6-yard pass. You're like, oh, we hate that. But you have to remember, like, that's his game. His game is not getting into 3rd and 16s. And it's, you know, the boneheads around him who wound up putting him in that situation where he has to look bad. So I get why you don't want to take the starting job from Stidham after this, but also I don't see what you're learning this week. But I guess you're just assuming that things go well when you have a starting offense against backups, and there really is no rush. You might as well make sure that Bo, I don't know, odds, he seems like he knows what he's doing, but he goes out there and throws 3 picks between the joint practice and the preseason, and all of a sudden you're like, well, we called that too soon. So, I mean, keep your flexibility, keep it open. Also, I don't know why people think that I hate Bo and I'm a Chiefs fan, but that's a different conversation.
Well, we know you don't hate Bo. We know you're not a Chiefs fan, Henry. We love you. And let's talk about other guys that the Broncos are loving right now, Henry. Who's trending up? Who's trending down after this first game? Let's start with the positivity. Yeah. Because you're a Bo guy, so Bo's obviously trending up. Who else is trending up, Henry?
Let's go with Frank Crum. he had an incredible game. Like he finally, like we've mentioned it a couple times, but he's had some rough practices, and it's this weird dynamic
those words
where,
from you.
like Thomas Incoom, Drell and Chami, they've just been kind of ripping him apart in practice. Like there was a day where he gave up 4 sacks and had a penalty, and you're just like, oh boy, what's going on here? But I mean, in this game, Crum looked awesome, and those two were actually pretty quiet. Incoom had a couple decent moments, but the pass rush really wasn't there. I mean, his first run play on the field, he gets a pancake. Estime wound up fumbling that one, but he got a pancake. The next play, he's just like dominating, pushing a guy back. It just kind of over and over. He's just so big and so strong. There was another one where he just put a guy on his knees. You know, he probably should have given up a sack too, but Zach Wilson made that guy miss, wound up running for 5 yards. That was the Forsyth holding call. But a lot of good moments, and you saw just kind of the raw tools show up, even if the technique still isn't perfect, which is good to see. I think really you go through the backup offensive line, the third string offensive line. Alex Palshevsky, he showed up and just had an incredible game. I don't know that he missed a block all day. He's making plays out in space. I think he also had a pancake in there.
Love pancakes.
Maybe not, but it was just over and over and over. And they had him flipped into guard too, which we're not allowed to say, but is something we've seen in practice. I think you go through all
game,
those
you can
guys.
definitely say it then.
Demontre Jacobs, you have like the 2 tosses that went for touchdowns. Both of them were on his side of the field where he's running out there and making a block downfield. You don't get either of those touchdowns without him. So I think that we don't need to name every one of those guys, Will Sherman, but that entire second and third string backup offensive line looked really good. And I think all of a sudden you go from saying with no Quinn Bailey, do you just keep 8 because you could probably get these guys to the practice squad, to now saying if you keep 10 guys, you might be at risk of losing somebody if this is how everything plays out in the preseason.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to go a little step further, and I'm going to say trending up is the Broncos pass protection. It was not perfect, as I mentioned, the very first play that Bo was in, Quinn got beat. But it was so much better. 0 sacks, Henry. What was the thing at the NFL owners meetings in the spring that Sean pointed to when asked, what is going to make your offense score more points? He said, taking fewer sacks. It was a direct shot at Russell Wilson. Yep. He said last week that sacks are more on the quarterback than the offensive line. The Broncos had 0 sacks in this game, which is incredible. So I'm going to say pass protection, but not really pass protection. Just the ability to evade sacks is trending in the right direction, and that's credit to Jarrett Stidham, Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, a guy who's taken tons of sacks in the past. Credit Zach Wilson, the backup offensive line, third string offensive line, like you said, and then also the starting offensive line, especially because it was such a big concern for me in the first 3 weeks of training camp how this starting offensive line looked. They look better. I'm not saying that they've made it yet, but they're trending in the right direction because I thought they were pretty darn low to start this game. So credit there. I'm also going to give...
might as well just go to Luke Wattenberg from there.
I like it.
You know, he didn't have a very good day. I haven't decided on a grade for him, but there's like probably like 5 different plays where I'm like, I just didn't quite get that one. I just didn't quite get that one. You know, there's like a screen where he just didn't quite get to his landmark. There's a toss where he didn't quite get to his guy, but if Jaleel maybe like cuts back inside and sets up his blockers instead of going to the edge, as he really, really, really likes to do, which sometimes puts his blockers in tough spots, maybe that's different. But Wattenberg, I didn't think had a really bad day. It's just that there were a handful of plays where it's like, just didn't quite get him cleanly, or just like made the quarterback take a step this way, or just needed a little bit of help from somebody. Or maybe this would have been a 7-yard run instead of a 5-yard run if you just get him a little bit more cleanly. I did think that Alex Forsyth had a really good day, though. He got called for that holding. Again, it's a tough call. So what happens is it's pass protection. He gets his guy nice and clean, not going anywhere, but he's just kind of like grabbing the inside of the shoulder pads, which is typically what those interior linemen do when they're in pass protection. Zach Wilson breaks the pocket, and all of a sudden the defensive lineman tries to turn and get out there, and Alex Forsyth is holding. And so that's going to get called, and that's something you just got to clean up. But, you know, I think that this really is a competition still.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think it is a competition still. One that might not be a competition for much longer is the inside linebacker job. I think Cody Barton is definitely trending up. We got to see it with the Broncos naming him the starter for this past game. I thought he had a good game. We saw Jonas Griffith out there. He was beat. I don't really know if it was on him. I actually didn't go back and watch that play, but he was beat deep, and then he just looked kind of upset. He thought that something was blown in coverage on that play. But I think just putting pieces together, it seems like Cody Barton is trending to be the starter in that direction.
So on that play, it's a tight end. It's a double move, so he goes out and up. And I'm pretty sure it was a big blitz. And so I could be misremembering that. It might have been a different double move. But I'm pretty no, I think it was a different double move. But that one I did have is him, where he just didn't stick with it. 26 yards. You just can't have it. Barton, he was fine. You know, he had a good play on the first play. He was in coverage on a running back who went out to the flat, and he just wasn't quite fast enough getting out to the flat, and it's a 12-yard gain because he's able to get the edge. I didn't come away super excited about the Broncos linebackers, even Lavelle Bailey, who had a couple of nice plays, but wasn't overwhelmingly good. The only linebacker who was awesome was Alex Singleton, who gets an easy A+ because he was just everywhere in the passing game and the run game and just everywhere. Still hoping somebody kind of stakes their claim for that second job.
Yep, 100%. Okay, before we give out more trending up and trending downs, just gotta give a shout out to the Toyota chat right now for the good. We've got RK's hairline in the Toyota chat with a picture of RK's hair. That is a pretty good account right there. And, of course, something that's going on in the NFL right now, it was just announced that J.J. McCarthy, a guy that maybe the Broncos were interested in, and that Sean Payton certainly wanted the public to think was interested in, it tore his meniscus, and so is having knee surgery. Obviously, that's something that, it's brutal for the Vikings, brutal for J.J. McCarthy, and just has maybe a tiny bit of connection to the Broncos. So wanted to mention that the Toyota chat is talking about. And one more time, really quick, guys, we love Henry. Please stop the hate, Hank.
I don't know why they think I don't like Bo.
And I don't know either, but we love Hank. Let's keep it nice and be nice to the people on this show, please. Okay, speaking of trending
also, real quick, they haven't said it's a torn meniscus. From what I've seen, they've said that there's knee soreness and there's some sort of meniscus issue, and the surgery is going to figure out what exactly is going on.
Kevin O'Connell just announced he has a torn meniscus.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So brutal for the Vikings there. Okay, I want to give a couple more trending ups really quick with the show running down. Trending up, Vele, I mentioned how he had that one he read that play wrong in the end zone. I thought overall, though, he had a good game, but also the amount that he was used with the first, second string is very, very, very telling. And I'll give one quick trending down. Troy Franklin, pretty much non-existent in this game. You did mention he was open on that one play, but for the most part, he was being used way after Devon Vele was in the game. And so I think that the coaches are showing who's ahead on the depth chart, and I do think it's Devon Vele. I think they both make the team, but I just think this is even more proof that Devon Vele is a lock to make this team.
Yeah. No, he was solid. He was really solid. There was which wheel route was it? I think it was the one to I should check my notes. I didn't write it down. I think it was the one to Jaleel. I think it was Jaleel who cuts up, and you have the linebacker in coverage coming across the line of scrimmage. And Bailey just takes a little step, sets the pick. It actually doesn't make contact. He would have been allowed to because it's within a yard of the line of scrimmage. But just that little vet move. And speaking of that, there was a very similar play on defense. Remember when Damari Mathis almost had the interception?
Yep.
It's this big dig. With Vance Joseph's defense, you can never, it always looks like man coverage. That was one of my takeaways, is it felt like the Broncos were playing man coverage over and over and over. First preseason game, keep it simple, makes sense. But also in his defense, a lot of the time it's this cover 3 match that looks like man coverage but actually isn't. The point is, Damari Mathis's responsibility is that wide receiver who does beat him. But Jaquan, who has a route coming the other way, gives a little bump to the receiver, And that's why the throw is off target, and Damari has time to recover, almost catches it.
I love it.
And I'm not sure if that was intentional or not from Jaquan, but it was so subtle that they're not going to be able to call it. It's almost like a little pick route. Another super vet play. That's also why I came out of that game saying like, Damari Mathis, Riley Moss. Damari kind of got bailed out on that one, and that was kind of the one good play and a couple of not so good other plays. Riley Moss, though, I think had a really solid game. And so I'd have him certainly in front after week 1.
That's exactly where I'm going. I think Riley Moss is trending up. I think he's going to be the Broncos' week 1 starting cornerback outside of Pat Surtain, or opposite of Pat Surtain. Henry, I totally agree with you. The run defense is also trending up. The Colts averaged 2.8 yards per run, 23 carries for 64 yards. Holy cow. This is the thing that Sean Payton and George Payton at the end of last season pointed to as the number one thing they needed to improve this year. When just asked about the entire football team, that's what they pointed to, specifically George Payton. And certainly early looks are looking really good. Malcolm Roach was a beast. Yep. I mean, even made a tackle when his helmet came off, made a couple tackles behind the line of scrimmage, was all over the place. The investment in the defensive line looks to have paid off, and they didn't even have Jonathan Franklin Myers out there.
Or Zach Allen.
Or Zach Allen. Really good point this past week.
Yeah, with Malcolm, it was kind of fun going back and watching, because I wrote the film room on Malcolm, which you guys should go back and read if you're excited about him when they signed him. But it's fun watching like the all 22 and see him, like he has this little swim move where then he's in the hole and he gets the running back. It's like that. It's exactly what he looked like with the Saints. Like that's the exact play that you bring him here to make, and to see him like he just looked like himself. It's honestly similar to Bo in a lot of ways, where it's like, yep, just looks like himself, just doing it in a Bronco uniform, and that's what you want to see. Matt Henningsen. I guess Elijah Garcia too, but Matt Henningsen playing nose tackle, so stout, holding his ground. I'm not sure if he's put on some weight or put on some muscle, because he was solid before, but he, especially in those couple of runs down by the goal line, he looks big and strong and ready to be a nose tackle, which is fun. And Elijah Garcia too, I thought a couple of times looked a lot stronger, more stout. And again, he's a longer defender, so sometimes it's tough for him, but he gets double teamed and barely moves an inch. So I thought all the way from top to bottom, they've just got so many guys. Jordan Jackson also really, really, really good game.
I love it. I love it. Now, a couple of trending downs before we get out of here. I'm going to run through these quick. I've already talked about Troy Franklin, Jonas Griffith, just because other guys are really stepping up. So it's not the best for them, not to make the roster, but just their spot on the roster. Penalties, really bad. Sean Payton hated the penalties after the game. I think the starting offense had 4, which is just inexcusable. If the Broncos do that again this year, it's going to be tough for any quarterback to overcome that. Jarrett Stidham wasn't able to overcome it. They cannot do that, and that's starting with the offensive line. Turnovers, you're never going to win games turning the ball over as much as the Broncos did. It was pretty incredible. They were able to put up 34 points and win with the turnovers they had. And then one other guy that's trending down, Samaje Perine. Henry, I think right now he's on the outside looking in. Yeah. I think he's brought here to do one thing, and that's be a safety net out of the backfield, catching the ball. He has already dropped a couple of balls in training camp, and then this one in the game was absolutely brutal. I know Blake Watson had a fumble, which you can't have, but I think Blake Watson might even be ahead of him right now. You can have rookie mistakes. You can't have rookie mistakes when you're supposed to be the 7-year vet or whatever he is that is absolutely counted on. You can't have that. I think he's on the outside looking in. I think he's trending down.
I think he's on the outside looking in. I said on the post-game show, though, I don't think it. Like, it's a bad play. Like, I already wrote his section. He gets an F. But you know what he is. And I don't think that his hands just, like, evaporated overnight. I don't think it ever... Oh, it definitely looked like it, but, like, it doesn't... That's just not how these things usually work. Like, to me, there's really nothing he can do to help his case or hurt his case just because he's been the exact same guy for, like, 4 years now. It's just about whether somebody else beats him. And I think as of now, they're guys you'd rather have. Lucas Kroll was somebody I had. I wasn't sure whether to go trending up or trending down, just because it was just such an adventure with him. You know, Audric Estime's, I think it was the first run. Lucas Kroll just pancakes his man, just blows him up. Beautiful play. But then you just have all these blocks. There's one where it's a run up the middle of Jaleel. There's one where Latu beats him inside and outside and just blows up another run. He tried to kick out block on the first run of the game, loses that one too. So like as a blocker, you see the tools. It also just doesn't work as often. Obviously, we saw what we saw in the passing game. Nate Adkins, on the other hand, straight A, just 7 incredible blocks. You don't score touchdowns without him.
Make sure to stay tuned to thednvr.com. Before we get out of here, the Blind Swordsman says Bo is the best QB3 in the NFL. He also needs to be the starter. I love that, Blind Swordsman. Thank you so much for the super chats. Andrew Farmer, I see you in the Toyota chat, plus all of you guys. Thank you so much for rocking and rolling with us today. Thank you, Blind Swordsman, for the second super chat. We appreciate you guys. Stay tuned to thednvr.com for Henry's game grades. Have a terrific Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow after practice.
We all silly like the mayor.